Hey guys, welcome to the Neglected Podcast. This podcast is not to change your mind, but to invite you into somebody else's narrative. This is a podcast to give a voice to the neglected. It is also an opportunity for all of us to engage.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Neglected Podcast. My name is Nick Schultz. You can hit me up at Schultz Time. We are at For the Neglected, and we got producer Quinn over there. Quinn, thanks for being here, man. Like always, you're the man. And we have a special guest today. Her name is Brittany Harris. What's going on, Brittany?
Nothing much.
You're just chilling? You're all good?
Chilling. Yes.
So we have a cool friendship connection. Mm-hmm. You worked for DFCS, which is the Department of Family and Children's Services. Yes. Because my wife and I, we are a foster family. So that is how we initially just got hooked up as acquaintances and friends. And you were checking in on us and asking us all sorts of questions and making sure we were good to go as foster parents. So we will get to that a little bit more towards the end of the podcast, yes. But that's how we got connected, and you were always cool with us and trusted us and loved us, and we always appreciated it. And it's like, absolutely, trying to find some more guests for the podcast. Like, oh, dang, Brittany, she's got a story, but she also has a really unique perspective of being inside that world that, you know, we're trying to be a part of and help out. So looking forward to talking about that. Yeah. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get started with little Brittany and where you are from, where you grew up, your family dynamic, maybe your neighborhood dynamic, and just your background.
Yeah, so I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. I grew up with both of my parents. My childhood was pretty great. We traveled everywhere. Anything that my mom or my dad did, they always brought me along. I have a sister. By my dad first, and then my mom had my brother, so I'm the only child. So I grew up the quote-unquote baby girl, the only one in the home. I mean, my childhood was really good. I never had any issues. I never seen like the struggle part of growing up. My parents always provided for me anything that I needed. They gave that to me. I mean, I really was what you call the spoiled little girl. But growing up, I had a really hard time, especially in high school. It was almost like the identity crisis type thing, even going into college. It was in the transition of the time of my mom getting sick. You have your community. We grew up faith-based. We grew up on God. We grew up, knowing who God was and who God is to you, and learning how to, get that relationship with him for yourself. I always went to church, stayed in, the youth choir. My dad was an usher. My mom was in the choir. So, it was just, that was our foundation. God was our foundation. But high school, transition to college was when it really hit for me. My mom was discovered to have liver cancer. And it took a huge toll. It took a very, the turn was, it was like, how we say gray area? It wasn't even a gray area. It was just no area, period, for me. But in that transition, I was literally lost. She was like my everything, literally my everything. And when you have your family, but it's just like you by yourself in that transition. I was a freshman going into college. And when
Where were you going to college?
I went to Armstrong State University. Okay,
here in Savannah?
Yes, here in Savannah. That's now Georgia Southern. But in that transition, we would go to, I think I went to maybe 2 visits. We would go, see the doctor in regards to the follow-up of what's going on, her biopsy, things of that nature. But after a while, in the back of your head, it's just like, when is it going to happen? Is she going to live, or is she going to make it, or is she going to die? That's when my faith was really tried. Although, you grew up on that, but your faith is really tried in, certain circumstances. Right. So,
what did they say about her when she first got diagnosed? Did they give any kind of timetable or what to expect, or were you prepared for that?
I will say I never knew the timetable. My dad, I think he just kept that away from his children. So it won't be something that we focus on a lot. But I do remember it was just like the back and forth within those 6 months of, the checkup, the chemo. It was a lot. My mom was still working even with chemo, she, the normal size like me, she became so little, like so brittle, and she was still working. She was working at the Medical College of Georgia, MCG, and it would be times where I come and pick her up, and she would be so tired. It was just a lot of back and forth. So the more that she got so little, and I started seeing, like, they call it jaundice in the eye. Her eyes were yellow. It was a very difficult time, and I just was like, Lord, when? When is she going to, prepare me for that? When is she going to go home? So, but it was in that time, the month span of me transitioning, coming back home, my freshman year of seeing her. And then it was literally, I think, the day after Christmas. I was laying down in the living room, and my brother, all the family was home. And we got the call. I believe my dad was already at the hospital. And we got the call that, Mom has transitioned now. He woke me up and was like, Mom is gone. And it was, I literally was daydreaming. I felt like I was daydreaming because it was like I felt something on my shoulder to say, hey, you're going to be okay. You know how sometimes he gives you something before something happens. And I set up, and I wasn't like, I guess you could say I wasn't really understanding at the time. It was still a shock, but I didn't feel it. Like, I didn't come off like it was a shock. It was like, wow, this really happened. This really happened to me. So. And
how old were you at this?
I was 18. Yeah, I
18.
was.
And what year was this?
This was 2010.
Okay, 2010. You were 18. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And was there any part of you, like, maybe not at that moment, that was relieved? Did you feel like she was suffering and like it was really hard to watch her live like that?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. It was hard looking at her in that state. My mom was always strong-willed. She'll do anything for anybody. It was like, well, we have to be that to you. We've always been that to her, but we really got to be that for you now. And it was very hard watching her. It would be hard for me to come home because I didn't want to see that or just be around it. And but it was really hard seeing her like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it was especially, I guess, faith-wise, like it challenged what you did. It challenge just your view on God, or what you believed about what you've been told your whole life, or what you felt like. Take me through that journey of when you found out about your mom and then she passed away, and just like what were the challenges for you in dealing with that?
The challenge for me, a lot of it was, how we say faith, is the evidence seen, hope, those things. But it was as if, like, I'm questioning God often. Why me? Why her? When you grow up in a household that's like really family oriented, and they will never tell you everything, but my parents are really the ones where, even though I would say half the time I was sneaky with certain things, but I could come to them with a lot of stuff. And my mom, she was just my best friend. And just seeing that, like, how could you take somebody that I'm so close to away from me? And I questioned God a lot. But then I will also have those times where I'm just like, okay, reel it in, sis, because you know who God is. You know that this is not their home. Earth is not their home. Heaven is the home. And you know that she's no longer suffering. So hold on to that. Even in the transition from when I went to college, and even after the fact, I would say finding a community-based, church, a faith-based church, you really want to surround yourself with that. I think that is one of the greatest things that happened to me in that transition with my faith. They surrounded me so much with love and encouragement and just keeping me, on my toes in my word. But I will say that there are times where it was like, God, how could you? But he always reassured me with different things. When I accomplish something, or when I get through, a challenge, it was always reassurance, like, she's watching over you. The scripture talks about, a cloud of witnesses. I learned that even within my church. Never knew about that scripture until then. It was just so encouraging to me just to know that, okay, yeah, that's my angel. She really is watching over me throughout whatever I go through, throughout whatever I put myself through, or whatever, the challenges may be. I have somebody rooting for me in heaven. So
yeah. One of the words people use, that are have faith is like purpose, God's purpose for something. And when you look back on it now, do you see, obviously you felt purpose in her life because she taught you so much and meant so much to you, but do you see or feel like her purpose in what her struggle and her death and what it means to her life and to other people that she touched just as much as maybe when she was living, or is that still hard to grasp and wonder why it had to happen?
No, till this day, there are people that really, if my brother and myself, if we post something about mom, they're like, oh my God, I miss her so much. My mom was she was like the mom that you have to share with everybody. And I didn't mind because I grew up like that. I was taught that from my mom and dad, so many values and so many things that we stood on. They taught me that. She was literally an angel on earth, anything that you needed, even if she just was really a phone call away. She was really, the mom to other moms, the mom to those that didn't have a mom, the moms who lost their moms, sister, friend, anything that you could think of. That was really my mom, and I see that the value of her, it still lives on. A lot of people, they miss her. They miss her presence, even if you call her up, with the issue or just whatever, just to talk. She literally was that listening ear. Didn't tell your business, but literally was the listening ear, or the one that gave you that, an encouraging word or what you may need to hear, in love.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it sounds like she's given you purpose in some of the stuff that you've been doing since you've been an adult and since she's gone. And we'll get into that too. But, it's really neat to see kind of her influence in your life to this day. And so let's go there a little bit. Your mom passes away, you're graduating college, and what is the plan, or what do you want to do with your life at this point?
What plan? The plan, so after I graduated, I was already working as a patient service coordinator at my eye doctor. I literally was I graduated with public health. Okay?
You always wear cool glasses too, by the way. So.
Right. But I was working there for a minute, probably, well, not even a minute, I would say like a year or so. But when I went there, it was literally it was still a hard transition even after graduation, because you want to come out with your career. You want to come out on top. Yes, I got my bachelor's. Hey, I'm going to be a career woman. No, I'm working at my eye doctor, signing patients in. That's it. Not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, it was like, wow, okay, what do I do now? And I had an intern. I was working at Coastal, not Coastal Pediatrics. It was a different type of intern, but I was working with youth advocacy. And my mentor, my intern at the time, really was just talking to me about, what would I really want to do? And the more that I started working with, youth advocates, we always talked about, health and wellness, educational things wise of, what do you do with bullying, just those type of things that, youth deal with often. And I got into that, and I just loved it. Just love working with kids in general. And so I just didn't know which route to go. And so she said, why don't you apply for DFCS? Why don't you just apply? There are times where you don't have to have a certain degree in an area, and, they'll pull you in and teach you and, different things. So I said, okay, why not? It's going to be a great job. It's a state job too. Okay, let's go.
Didn't know what you were getting into, huh?
Right. Didn't know what I was getting into, Nick. But it was a wonderful experience. So I applied. I had my interview over the phone, and I would literally say probably within the next week, I was hired.
All right, well, let's stop there.
Okay.
Because I think we all have a perception before we get into that world of what we think DFCS, Department of Family and Children's Services, is like, or what foster care is like, or adoption, and just what we think is really going on in our neighborhood about whether orphan and foster kids being taken care of, who they are. So what was your perception of that world before you got into it? And because, you've mentioned you had a really good, I'm not going to say sheltered life, but you had a great family life and both parents and, had a wonderful environment. And now you're getting ready to step into an environment that maybe you've seen in some people before, but it's a lot different than working there. So what was your perception before you went in?
Before I went in, of course, you always hear, that's the only thing that I always heard about DFCS is that they take kids.
Take your kids away.
And take your kids away. But I knew it was more than that. I didn't really have like a hard-on perception of DFCS. It was just more so, I know that this is probably going to be like the real world once I come in, because you are dealing with other people. You are dealing with people's lives. It's not nothing surfaced. You are literally in their home. You're in their home. You're in their business. You're in it all. So that I will say that was one of the perceptions I did have. Wasn't much prepared for it, but I got prepared.
Yeah, you were in my business. I mean, you were definitely in my business.
Absolutely. So
you're checking up on us. We got to fill out paperwork that's about like 6 inches thick, and like you got to know our finances, ask personal questions, check everything in our home, talk to our kids. I mean, you are in our business.
Who's in the rooms?
Of those things. You were. I mean, it's legit. It's a different world. And so what did you end up being hired as at DFCS?
I was hired as a recruitment case manager. Recruitment caregiver, it's a long name, I really forgot, but recruitment case manager pretty much. And so what that entailed was for me to go out, do recruitment, whether it's at an event in the park, or if somebody, is having an event, and I just come and speak, just to talk about what we're looking for, the kids, how many kids we have in care. And then it also entailed me, teaching those parents that are on board now, or are willing to come on board. They call those impact classes. And I think that was like almost, you have the 3-week training and you have the 6-week training. Yeah. So I would,
it's like 20 some hours you have to do.
Pretty much, like 24.
24 now?
Yeah. I think it's like 24 or 25 is between those two. But I would continuously recruit. I would do what they call re-evals, where once your home is open, within a year, you have to come back and, get those things back in order, and just call in probably every other month to see what's going on with the kids. Placement, I did placement a lot, with the kids that come in care. So that was pretty much what I did with recruiting at DFCS.
And that's not an easy job, recruit foster parents.
No.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't think people understand. I mean, we could have 300 kids or so in foster care in our county, in Chatham County here, and there might be 30 open homes.
There you go.
And so 40. For people that don't know, you do the math on that, and some of those numbers are, they might be in foster care, but the kids are going to a family member. So they're in foster care technically, but they're being placed with another family member. But then there's still a bunch of them who there's not enough homes here in Chatham County. So they get, if they're teenagers or something, might try to send them to a group home.
Yeah.
If when they're younger, they could be sent to Atlanta, they could be sent to Albany, they can be sent to different counties. And so they're being taken out of, not only taken out of their family, but now they're being taken out of their school district, their environment, and their whole world is in chaos. And for you to try to recruit parents to say, hey, do you want to take in some kids who aren't yours and have us completely in your business and have your life totally altered? Nobody's raising their hand to do that.
Not at all.
And
not at all.
I mean, we could talk for hours about that.
Yeah.
But that's a really difficult thing. So,
yeah,
one of my biggest struggles is, from the faith perspective, is just like how inactive the church and people of faith are not involved in this. And that's a frustrating thing. And I'm sure you probably ran into that too. It's just like, well, we're all the people who say they believe in God and they don't, I don't want to take care of the widow and the orphan. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And so you can get very frustrated with it. But, take us through some of the most difficult things about your job, because I want people to really hear about it, not to scare them, but just this is the world and the reality. Because people in your position, there's such a high turnover rate with caseworkers in DFCS. It's like less than 2 years, I think. And so
yeah.
they're always turning over because probably some of the things you're going to share as far as difficulty, hours, pay, just all that stuff. Walk us through that difficult job.
Yeah. So I could probably start at the top of, we'll go with number one to get that one out the way, which is the pay. So they bring you on board, and you do have the option. I mean, we're learning that now of how to negotiate. But they do base it off of, you know, what you have or what you earned in college or whatever degree that you have. The work doesn't match up to the pay, even if you have a master's. Kudos to those that are still there. You know, I still keep in contact with those that are still there doing a magnanimous job. Don't know how they do it, but the work that you have, it just really don't match up to the pay. You know, there are certain expectations, you know, you have those policies that you have to, you know, complete, but it's like, it's not really, it's not a reality thing. It's like a, how can I say it? It's not a consensus, but you know, every agency has a goal to reach, especially in numbers. But to me, it just seemed like the importance of what you did was based off numbers. You know, we have these many kids. How many homes can we get? The realistic part of even opening up a home wasn't realistic. They say they'll give you, you know, 2 to 3 months, just depending on what kind of home is opening, whether it was kinship, whether it was, you know, out of state, or, you know, just, you know, a child coming in and we do have a home open or bed open. It just never, anything that we did just really never matched up. It always seemed like it was based off numbers and not the actual things of the kids, you know. And then, you know, the kids that would come in care, or the ones that I did see to come in care, they had a lot, like it was like a long list of things going on, or that was, you know, that they were diagnosed with. And so you have these based homes who say they want to be foster parents. And you'll have a kid with, you know, opposition defiant behavior, sets things on fire. You know, just, I could just go on about the list of the trauma that these kids have been through, or what they are, you know, diagnosed as, or, you know, itemized as. But then you have the home who only wants the 0 to 15 or the 0 to 1. We've definitely had that before. And you know, we understand the dynamics of the different foster parents of what they want, but it's just, when you're recruiting, it was always, you know, it was more so of recruiting. You're recruiting for the foster parents, but you want to recruit for the kids. You want to advocate for the kids because these kids really need homes. So the pay, just the things that we had to do, the pay never matched up. You run into a power trip a lot within the agency. I mean, you can run into a power trip anywhere, but it was almost as if, you know, me being the youngest, I was literally the youngest on my team. It was very difficult. You know, if you opened your mouth about something, then, you know, you're looked as the problem, or you're looked as, you know, you're not with the agency. You're not with us, but I am, because I'm advocating for certain things. Or if I have an opinion or a question, then, you know, let's talk about it. That happens a lot within the agency. Even when we have like an open discussion for everybody, you know, in the building, then, you know, we have these opportunities to speak about things, but, you know, are you really listening? Do you really hear us? Or is it just, you know, what I say, you know, because I'm top tier, you know, what I say is what I say go. We're just doing this because we want to see, you know, what you guys have to say, but this is just to pass time. And that's how I felt, especially a lot. You know, we have these forums, you know, the government may come, or, you know, select officials may come to talk about, you know, the things in DFCS, but do you guys really hear us? You know, people on the outside looking in as if we're not doing our job, but we have people that's working their butts off, you know, getting caseloads done, or, you know, having 30 kids on their caseload, and you want something done within the very next day. You know, how realistic is that? You know, and then the power trip portion was a lot for me, but it definitely built me up to be confident in certain areas of my life, especially with speaking out about things, but learning to be humble and show humility. it definitely helped me in that regard. But those things with defects and just the job itself in general, the pay never matches up.
Right.
And just the difficulty of recruiting for foster homes. You have parents, you have those people that, say they have a heart for it. And I think I talked to you about this a while ago, and I'll always say this, but when you have those people that say, God gave me this, you have those that, hey, yes, God did give you that. But when you really get down to the nitty gritty, the process is, is tedious. And as you go through, you really have to really ask him, is this something that he wants you to do? Or is this something that he gave you to do? Because you have a child that's coming into your home that doesn't know you and you don't know them. And they're looking at you for all of those things that may have been missing. They're looking at you for comfort, care, love, even when they are tearing your house up or whatever the case may be. They are looking, you know all about it. They are looking for that. They call it the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase could be backwards. Sometimes they come in and it may not be what you think it is. They really about to try you. They're going to try you to see if you really love them and care for them, because they've been to thousands of homes. That's exaggerating, but they've been to a home here. Yeah, they've been to a home here, a home there, a home here, because somebody said, hey, get them out of my house. So
yeah, it's messy.
It's a lot.
I mean, it's just very messy on every different level. And it's not just our defects here. It's like every defects. And a lot of them there's no like universal rules a lot of times and procedures and how we do stuff. There's different counties have different ways to do it. Different states have different ways of doing stuff. And it's messy all around. And I understand why people don't want to get involved in it from a foster parent side of it. Yeah. I understand why people can't last very long working there because of having to be on 24/7. And, the recommendation from what I know is that it'd be great to only have like 10, maybe 15 kids on your caseload.
That is.
But you're working a lot of times with 30 or more because of the amount of kids in the system and the amount of people you have to do it. So you are constantly putting Band-Aids on gushing nasty wounds, and you're just doing that all over the place without feeling like you're really making a big change in the whole process. And so it's draining. Yeah. And I commend you for doing it. And like you said about the kids too, it's like, hey, we only want a newborn or a little 3-year-old white girl that doesn't have any problems or something. I mean, you can say stuff like that, but then you're not going to be of any service. And most of the needs we have are for teenagers, for sibling groups, and for kids with a lot of times, special needs or autism or disabilities and stuff like that. And so if you're not wanting to do any of those and you have 30 homes and one or two of them are the only ones that don't want to have anything or willing to do that, then that creates a whole set of circumstances for us personally. And you know this, we only wanted one child,
but you guys,
and we've had 2 placements of siblings, and you got to see that because we already had 4 kids of our own. So we're like, 1 please. And like, hey, I got 2 for you. But again, we had to make that decision of, okay, we can sit here for a whole nother year, 6 months, who knows how long, and not have anybody, but we're supposed to be doing this. And okay, here's some twins. So we're going to do this or not? Holy crap, here we go. And you guys did it. It's insanity. Yeah. And you were there with us the whole time. We thought we were having those 2 girls for 3 months, maybe 6 months. Ended up being a year and a half. And you're just smiling and coaching us and encouraging us all the way through it. But it is such a mess. And coming from 2 people who grew up in a 2-parent loving home, it really kind of rocks your world a little bit, because you're not exposed to that when you're growing up and understand it either from a personal side or, hey, nobody told me about this. My church didn't tell me about this. My church wasn't involved in this. And now I'm an adult and I'm here and seeing what's going on. Like, where was the disconnect? Yeah. Why weren't we about this? Or I wasn't exposed to hear about it. And, for you, what was the, I don't want to say breaking point or anything, but like, where was your heart the most hurt just personally in some of the situations you were dealing with? Was it a certain kid situation, a home, or just like the overwhelming aspect of all of it for you?
I would have to say it was the overall overwhelming aspect for me. But my heart was really with just seeing like the behaviors that you see out of the kids, knowing that I know that's not you. Mm-hmm. I know that you're doing certain things because of your situation. And then, you know, kids are just kids. It really breaks my heart to see parents, or just what I've seen. You want them to be like a statue almost. Like, you don't want the child to be a child. You know, they are going to push the limits to a certain extent, but, you know, you have to learn, you know, you need to learn the child, learn who they are, what they are, and, you know, their interest. You know, you can't, okay, so for example, I've had a home before where the parent is maybe like 70 something and the child is 14 or 13. Mm-hmm. They're not going to want to sit down with you looking at soap operas all day. They want to get out, you know, maybe a game or two, television. You know, you just have to learn those things. And if something happens and it's like, get them out. That breaks my heart a lot, you know, because it's like, you know, I know that the case managers do all that they can, you know, to maintain and, you know, sustain a home with a child that could be, you know, possibly difficult. But just seeing that they have to be brought out of their environment, especially if something is going on with the home. I had one, the mom was sick, very sick, and they, you know, unfortunately had to place the child outside of, you know, Savannah. And she did all her power. The things that she was doing was not because it was a behavior situation. It really was because she wants to be placed in where she was, to be with her mom, to get ready, you know, to be able to see her mom. So it's those things that really just broke it off for me. Like, these kids really, you know, they need help. They need love. They need care. They need all the above. Whatever you can think of, they need all the above. But yeah, that was really my breaking point, just to having a heart for the kids that you come across, you know. Even the teenagers, they're sweet. Yeah. They're sweet.
How hard was it for you to leave? Were you just at the point of like, I have to, or I'm going to go insane? Or it's just like, I still want to be a part of this kind of world a little bit, but just in a different capacity?
I wanted to be a part of the world, just in a different capacity. For me, it was just management for me. The people that I surrounded myself with at the job were awesome. You know, I could have stayed, but I just was at my wit's ends. I really was at my wit's ends. And when I prayed about it, and God said move, I went ahead and did so. And even in that, it was, you know, you doubt sometimes because it's like, whoo, all right, I'm about to move from something that is sustaining me to something that I don't even know how long it's going to sustain me. But when you move with faith, it's like, wow, okay, God, thank you. But it was definitely my decision was sure. I already had my thing set up to where I'm gonna go. As soon as I hit that button, it's sent off. And when I got the call of being hired, I just said, thank you, God. So,
yeah. I was talking with somebody just a couple of days ago. They were asking like, hey, is Brittany still there? I need to find out about something. I mean, that's how.
And I'm open.
That's how crazy it is. It's just like, I mean, that you were their last contact, and I haven't heard from anybody else in a while. And I remember when you came to our house to do check-ins and stuff, and we'd be like, hey, Brittany, how are you doing? You'd be like, oh, Lord. Because, I mean, we knew, and like, you know, for us, it's just like, it's tough too, because it's such a thankless job. And people that are doing it for us, we just want to know, like, hey, we care about you, because that's the other thing too. That's such a, you don't realize like how much you can really make it, even if you're not a foster parent. If you just love on like a caseworker or somebody at DFCS and encourage them, just say, how are you doing? Like, and understand what they're going through.
It makes a world of a difference.
It's brutal sometimes.
Yeah, it is. But
we could tell.
Yeah. Yeah. So it definitely was a change, a great change for me.
Okay. And where is that change? What are you doing now? And what's that all about?
Yes, I am at Georgia Mentor. I currently am a program clinical service coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So I work closely with the kids. I work with the foster parents, of course, but I work directly with the kids. It has been a joy for me. The caseload that I would see or observe from the case managers at DFCS is kind of the same, but not really. We kind of have, somewhat of the same boatload or workload, but the management there that's what I prayed for. God, if you open this door, allow me to speak what I need to speak and, not take offenses to anything, but really grow in the area that I really want to be in, and just continue to, show me in that regard. And the management there, they're hands-on. I don't mind if my supervisor call me. That's how great it is. I don't I don't mind if my supervisor call me. I don't mind if my director calls me. It's just an overall great agency. DFCS is great too, but what I needed and what I wanted at the time, that's what I needed. And
you're still making a difference. You're involved.
Absolutely. Yes. The kids are amazing. The parents are amazing, but
I think it's interesting looking back at your story from you're younger and like how much your mom kind of built a lot of your character and how you care about other people and you, and giving you purpose for what you're doing now. Not only from the good experiences and like you said, she was always the mom for somebody else. She was listening to what other people had to say. She was there for other people, and you're doing that now for other kids. But there's even the trauma side of it where you experienced her going through something difficult. You went through something difficult and ultimately a traumatic experience of losing a parent. And now you're taking that good, but you're also taking that trauma side of it of having a parent taken away from you and dealing with a lot of kids who have the same thing. It might not be an actual death of a parent, but it's a divorce, it's an abuse, it's they were left, whatever it is. And you're kind of using both of those experiences into what you're doing now and who you are. And it's just really neat to see how, you have purpose in doing that.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you view it as that way or not, but
it's
really
all
cool
coming
to see.
together. Yeah, it is. It's all coming together now. The more I talk about it, even with my pastor and my first lady, they are always driving me to purpose. They are always, driving me to, do what God has called me to do, or do it and be as what God has called me to be as well. So it's been a journey. It's still a journey. Still learning, but I'm just grateful. I think now at where I'm at, I'm grateful for the experiences. I'm grateful for all the things that from the time I was born to at this age, you can look back at it and either take it with a grain of salt or not take it with a grain of salt, but I definitely took it with a grain of salt, as well as, moving forward. Yeah.
Well, I just got a couple more topics or questions and just want to pivot, transition a little bit, but just where we are now as a country with COVID and political unrest and race and all those things, like, whether you want to be in that world or not, you're in it and you're dealing with people that are affected by it as well. And, not your beliefs on all those topics or what you personally think and what side you take or anything like that, but just like, how have you dealt with the past year, just who you are as a person and in those issues that are happening in our country? Do you like to engage? Do you like to turn it off? Do you see people a different way than maybe you did a year ago? Or like, how are you processing everything right now?
I was very silent. Like, I'm the one that observes a lot. I probably never spoke up about it. However, I'm just more sensitive to, people around or whoever I come across, because it definitely has took a toll even for me. At first, when COVID hit, we were, I guess was told to stay at home and work from home. And it's almost like being in four walls, you know, every single day. You're not able to go out. You're not able to do this. You know, you must have your mask. You know, now it's just, if I forget my mask, I just go right back and just stay in, because that means I don't need to go somewhere. But it just made me more sensitive. It really made me more sensitive. You know, even with the racial tour of things, I'm not going to say I was shocked, but it was like, wow, things really were, you know, pushed up under the rug. You know, people are now coming out of how they really feel towards African Americans, towards Hispanics, towards whoever. You know, what this country was raised on was really what it was raised on. And not trying to be funny, but, you know, the good old boys, you know, the white power, all of that, it really just came about, and it just resurfaced. You know, they always say history repeats itself, and it really is repeating itself in more ways than one. So, you know, I became very sensitive, but also, you know, just like, wow, this is what I read in the history books, or this is what, you know, my grandmother, or, you know, whoever that talks about politics or racism, these are the things that I'm really seeing. Like this, I'm living in a pandemic, also dealing with racial things, and also dealing with, you know, trauma, the mental state of it all. You know, people are really running rapid. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not really, I mean, you know, I don't know. It's scary a little bit, because you just don't know what's going to happen next with everything that's going on, you know, so.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, it's like, man, we can spend our time trying to pick a party or pick a side on certain things, but like the most influential you can be is like your sphere of influence around you. And, you know, you're working for Georgia Mentor. I mentor with our nonprofit Excel, and like I'm in that world, and I tell people like what I say and do and model for all these young men that I'm mentoring, and my own kids, like they're all watching right now what adults are doing, and adults that they think are right or over them, whether it's a parent or it's a mentor or it's a pastor, like they're taking it in. It's not like they're oblivious to what's going on. And so just personally, for you to be able to model, like doesn't mean you don't have opinion or don't have a voice, but just model like an adult who's compassionate and loving, and like, hey, let's listen first. And if somebody says something, you don't have to be right or correct them. I mean, it's a lot of, and you get it too, because you're working with the demographic that's already hurt. You know, they are in a traumatic state, and to go through this time period as well through that, especially if they're teenagers, there's so much confusion. It is. And, you know, that's what kind of concerns me as well, is like who's just loving on them, and giving them a healthy dose of what an adult hopefully can be and should be. And, you know, I'm glad you're in that spot. But I was wondering, because you are a quieter person, and so, you know, people can internalize a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, and if they don't have a safe person to talk to or a healthy outlet, then you know, as loving as you are, you can think certain things about people, or just get, you know, calloused and angry towards something, and it messes you up even more than you realize it. So just that mental health side of it. Yes.
That it can definitely alter. It can alter your view of people quickly if you allow it. You know, you don't want to hate anybody. But it's like, wow, you know, you were, you know, the things that you see, you were definitely taught that, especially with racism. You had to be taught that. That's nothing that you are inwardly already having once you're born. You know, it's definitely taught. And so when I approach people, or when people approach me, or when I see things, it's just like, yeah, you were taught that. But, you know, until you understand, you know, the unity and the view of things, then that's when only things can get better. But it definitely takes a mental state and a heart state as well with things. So
thank you. Well, and speaking of having a heart for people and listening and all that, you know, what we like to do at the end of the podcast is just ask our guests what is something what is a challenge you can give other people, for someone who has lost their mother or some, a parent or somebody they're really close to in kind of a traumatic way, like you did, or somebody that's working with youth or teens, and even if you're working with them, you just like they're around you somewhere.
Yeah.
And like this kid doesn't have a parent or has a bad home life. Like, what are a couple things of advice or simple steps somebody can take where they're not going to be like the hero to rescue everything, but it's like you can make a real difference in this person's life who went through something like I did, or these youth who don't have, they're in the foster care system. Like these small things like can make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say those are?
The number one thing I will say that I've been taught that has helped me a lot is giving people grace. Whether it's a kid, adult, just give them grace. Grace allows that space, for them to not only be themselves, but to maybe, get rid of some things as well. We are all carrying some type of baggage. Give them that grace, to get rid of it. Give them that grace to overcome. Give them that grace to, really be confident in what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do. Grace, that's really what I would give anybody, because I want the same thing. I may mess up in certain areas, but please give me grace. He's giving it to us. Why not us do the same thing? So grace and patience. Patience. Please give us patience.
They kind of go hand in hand sometimes,
yeah, it
right?
Definitely does.
It's not an immediate thing all the time.
No, it's not. Patience. And throughout it all, be yourself, of course. Always be yourself. It may be hard and difficult in the times that we're in now, but just be yourself. People will take more of a liking to you more than anything if you're just yourself. Understanding, but those are the things that I will say, especially number one, grace. Mm-hmm. Grace is what really has carried me through. Cool. So
I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. Appreciate you being here and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate you being were you technically our case manager? What was your title when you were working with us?
I was your case manager.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I was the foster parent case manager.
Foster parent case manager.
Yes.
So you have, were you there for both of our placements? Or
I believe so. I know I was there for 3 years. So yeah, I definitely was there for both those placements.
So you did us right. You loved on us. You made sure we were taken care of and checking in on us and our madness at the house. And so as a foster parent, I want to say thank you. As a friend, I want to say thank you, and just being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I think it'll be good for people to hear and help other people as well. So thank you, Brittany, for being here. Appreciate it. Quinn, thank you so much for producing. And appreciate everybody watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Neglected Podcast. Peace.